Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to Jamie Photography. So, a little bit of black and white. We're going to try to stick to Lightroom. I might add in a little bit of Silver Effects Pro here, but we're going to do some dramatic black and white to try to take an image that was actually quite a difficult image in the first place. And I go back to here, you can see that there wasn't a particularly interesting sky. It was just on dawn, and the whole contrast was low and the color was obviously very blue. So I wanted to try to take something with this and move it forward, but when the color's not right, go black and white. Really, that's a way to think. So taking this image, we've processed it into a more dramatic black and white. So yeah, I'm going to show you how we did this. This is Zan's museum, by the way, in Holland, in the Netherlands, not too far away from Amsterdam, and a wonderful place to visit. If you're enjoying what I'm doing here on YouTube, then please like the video. Always helps the algorithm. And also, if you have any comments or questions or tips that you'd like to leave, please feel free to do so down below. I love reading your comments. I try to respond to every one of them. And if you haven't already subscribed, it'd be great for you to join me here on YouTube. Okay, let's get started. So how do we go about turning this into a dramatic black and white image? Well, in this case, I've managed to capture quite a dynamic sky here. The sun was just sort of coming up and it was starting to appear behind the clouds. Of course, we always hope for the perfect sunrise, but in this case was just a cloudy sky with some light breaking through. So we can use that to our advantage. You can see that the exposure here, 1.3 seconds f8, so we were on a tripod, and 1.3 seconds gave us a little bit of smoothing on the water, gives us quite a pleasant look. And f8, of course, is roughly around the sharpest point for most lenses in terms of where they are. Somewhere between f5.6 and f11 normally gives you a pretty sharp image. And in this case, I shot at 20 millimeters, ISO 100, try to maximize the detail and reduce the grain. So first thing I'm going to do with this image here is I'm going to do my normal workflow, which is to go down to detail and check the denoise function. And then we're just going to apply denoise at 50% so that we have the minimum amount of noise possible, particularly once we start pushing the shadows a little bit. It's important to try to ensure that we have the minimum amount of noise. So that's just processing this, and it'll turn it into a noise reduced DNG. There we go. So enhanced noise reduction DNG. That's now where our starting point is. Now the next thing I would normally look at would be the perspective, and in this case I think we're looking pretty good. We got the lamppost leaning away ever so slightly, so I could check auto just to see whether that fixes things. But it does rotate it slightly over here. So actually what I'm going to do is go to guided, and I'm just going to pop a guided line on this street lamp here just to make sure that's straight. And then what we'll do is we'll pop one on this post here, which looks pretty straight anyway, but we're just going to pop one on there, and that will just give us the two verticals that we're after, and the horizontal coming across looks to be pretty well okay. Next thing I'm going to do is we're going to consider the crop, and I think we're looking pretty good, but I'm going to go to the crop tool here. I'm going to make sure the padlock is unchecked here, so I can click on the different ratios, and I'm going to try and pick a standard ratio. And here I'm trying to go for a bit more of a panoramic look, so I'm going to go with 16:10 and just see if we can pull that down. That gives us not too much in the foreground, but we've got this nice leading line going away from the center here, and of course the foreground turns into the background as it merges away to the left. So that works quite well. So I'm just going to hit return there, accept that. So next things we're going to do here is we're going to consider just taking out some of these little bits and pieces. This buoy here, this buoy over here is a little bit distracting. There's a little bit of garbage down here. So we're just going to go into the heal tool. We're going to check the content aware remove. Take a smallish brush, just enough to cover the item we want to get rid of, and we'll get rid of that there. I think also I'd like to get rid of this rope that sort of leads away to the edge over here and just make sure you get the shadow for it as well. There we go. And then just a little bit more there in the center just to get rid of that. So that looks better. And over here I can see just a little bit of rubbish there. And that's looking a little mark on the post. Just gonna take that away. So not a lot to do there really on this particular shot. So next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna think about how the exposure is going to look. Now, when we work towards black and white, one of the things that I tend to do is I tend to stick with color until the last point, because having color gives us a lot more options in terms of the color contrast that will inevitably become the contrast in the black and white. Now you might say, well, why don't you just go black and white and then you can alter the contrast? But if we do that, we take away some of the controllability that we get with the different colors. For example, the green here on the shed versus the blue in the sky. Well, we can deal with those separately within the black and white filter once we get there. But we want, in my case, I'd like to process as much as possible the image in color and then exaggerate the color before we go into black and white. So I'm going to open up the shadows here just so we can see a little bit more. Not all the way. I'm going to go about 85. Going to drop the highlights down on this sky a little bit up here. And what we're going to do is look at how we can relight the scene to give us the sort of dramatic look, the detail that we might want to see. I'm just going to zoom in a second, just going to let it render. Let it render that. I need to do that. So just call this over here. So there's a person stood there, just going to take them out of the shot. A little bit of that. They're gone, so that's good. And I might take out these birds because they're a little bit blurred in the shot here because they're moving on the water. So we're just going to take those out just so there's no distractions. And I think, yeah, that's pretty good. That's right on the edge of the image there, so I'm just going to remove that as well so we don't get this sort of border distraction that you can sometimes get on the very edge of the pictures. Right, so let's go back to where we were. So we'll go back to fit and we'll have a look. I think this green box also might need to be removed, so I'm just going to take that in there and try to keep the place looking sort of quite traditional really. There we go. That's not too bad at all, just a little bit along the bottom there. And we're done. Good. Right, so how do we relight this scene? Well, I'm just going to darken the whole image ever so slightly. Just going to bring it down about half a stop. And the reason we do that is now it gives us the ability to relight because we've got the data. Everything is inside the histogram here. There's a little clip. If I hover over that triangle there, you can see there's a little bit of a clip of blue, but a little bit of true black is not a problem. But as we relight the scene, we'll affect those things in a way that removes them slightly from the overall image. So let's think about what we can do here. Well, first thing I want to do is maximize the use of this lantern that's in the foreground and produce some additional light from it. So I'm going to go into the masks here, and I'm going to grab a radial gradient, do my normal workflow for a lantern, which is take a radial, place it over the lantern, brighten it up a little bit. There we go. I might even just decrease the color slightly by adding in a little bit more blue to that scene there, and then what we're going to do is zoom into the lantern itself. So let's go into 100, hold down the space bar to move across. That's fine. Let's go in a bit closer still. So let's go to 200. So we're really nice and close. We can see what we're dealing with here. We're going to subtract from this radial gradient here a brush. That brush is going to have a 0 feather and 100% flow, because what we want to do is remove from the radial the amount of light, set it back to 0 in effect. So I'm going to take a brush here. I'm going to click once. I'm going to hold down the shift key, move to a new position and click again. And that's how we get a straight line with our masking. So you just sort of click just inside the framing there. That has to come in just a little bit more. That's it. There we go. And then I'm just going to come up here, shift along there. So click and shift, click. and that gives us the straight lines that we need. I'm just going to pop one in on this bar as well, just so we've got the division of light. There we go. Take the brush, make it much bigger, and then I'm just going to, and you make the brush bigger and smaller by using the square brackets to the left of the return key. So I'm going to click once again, shift click, and just work my way around, shift clicking, making sure that I don't overlap. If I do accidentally overlap like this, you can always Command Z or Control Z to undo it. It's not a problem. So we're just going to go around and take out the rest of this radial. And just to check that you've got it all, you can hover over the mask square here, as you can see, and it will show you where the mask is. And that's absolutely perfect. Now, normally I would add a second mask here. I would duplicate this and create a smaller one to show where the lamp would be within the lantern. But in this case, because the light was on, we effectively are able to see the lamp in the center, so there's no need to do that. So I'm just going to zoom back out now, go back out to fit, and we've got that illuminated. So now what we want to do is create another mask, and this time another radial gradient, and we're going to pull one out, quite a large one, underneath this lantern, and I'm going to place the center of it at the bottom, as you can see. And then what we're going to do is we're going to raise the exposure so it looks about the right brightness. Of course, the color needs to be matched, so we'll go to the temperature slider whilst we're in this, and we will move that over. And I've gone all the way on there, but I do need to check the color balance, because this green's getting amplified over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring the magenta up gently until we find a match, which is about there. Color doesn't matter too much, as remember we're going black and white, but it's worth trying to get it as accurate as possible when you first start out with your masks that you apply. So I've just made that a little bit bigger still. Just going to bring it up here a little bit more. Just wanted that area to be really well illuminated. I don't want this area illuminated quite so much in the water there, so I can subtract a brush, and then I'm going to bring the feather up to 100% this time. Bring the flow down to about 40%. We're going to make the brush smaller by using the square brackets. You can always move the slider here as well for size, if it can be quite a quick way of doing it. And then I'm just going to gently come in from the top of this area here, sweeping backwards and forwards, holding down the mouse just to blend that away just ever so slightly from that area. So when I hover over that mask now, you'll see that it's cut away slightly at the top, so it's not lighting up this area over here, because the light wouldn't effectively go that far back, particularly across the water there. So that's looking pretty authentic, I have to say. So happy with that. This house back here, would like to light that up a bit more, and like a little bit more detail on the building here. So again, what we can do is we can take another radial gradient here. We can pull this radial gradient out. We can bias the radial gradient to this end of the house, because there's a lantern here that's casting some light, and it's pulling over. I'm just pulling over a little bit there, so the light will fade away as we go down the house here. So if I bring up the brightness here, so let's say to about there, and I'm going to bring the shadows up just a little bit as well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in that color that we saw before, just so it gets that sort of natural look. Just going to bring that down a little bit. There we go. Move that over. Now, we don't want to light the sky up, because you get a halo effect around the building if you do that around here. So we're going to subtract from this radial gradient, subtract the sky. Okay, so we're going to subtract the sky, and you'll see here that darkens down straight away. I think I'd like to darken this side a little bit more. So I'm just going to bring the whole thing down just a little bit. There we go. And I think the roof is just a little bit too bright. So same as we did before, subtract a brush. That brush is 100% feather, 40% slow, 40% flow, sorry. And then I'm just going to wash that through there like so, just to bring that down just a little bit. So I think that works quite well. Now I want to light up the windmill on the top there. So I'm going to do the same thing again, go get a radial gradient. I'm going to take a smaller radial gradient this time, and just sort of apply it at the top there. Brighten that up slightly, just a little bit. Going to have a bit of contrast this time to this one, and a little bit of color again. Got to subtract that sky. We don't want that sky lighting up, so subtract the sky. That works quite well. It is still a bit bright there inside there, so I'm going to subtract the brush again. This time I'm going to make the feather a bit smaller so we can get in a little bit tighter, and I'm just going to wash that away over the top there. So let's have a look at that. Hover over the mask. There we go. That looks better. Good. So I'm happy with this. We need to brighten up these windmills in the distance as well, and we need to create more effect from this sky. So let's do the windmills first. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to create another radial gradient. We're going to place it over each of these buildings over here. Going to brighten them up just a little bit, open up the shadows, add a little bit of contrast and a little bit of color, and we're going to subtract the sky. So that works quite well. There is a little bit of a halo there, so what I need to do is just zoom in over to that area. So I've clicked 200%, holding down the space bar. I need to deal with this here. It's not perfect, so I'm just going to go back to the subtract the brush. We've got I'm going to increase the flow a little bit this time, and what I'm also going to do is check the auto mask button. And what that means is that when I click on this, say this area of the sky here in the center, it won't deal with the light that's on the building. So if I click in there, you'll see, and I can move around, and it will darken the area down. And if I keep my finger down, I can actually go around this side as well, and I can just take away that halo effect. So this is lit up quite well over here. It's perhaps just a little bit too bright, so I'm just going to bring it down a little bit. And what I am going to do is going to add in some clarity just to make that sort of look a little bit more realistic over there. Just brighten that up just a little bit more. There we go. So that's looking pretty good. So what I can do now is I can right click on this one and I can duplicate the mask, so because it's got all the settings effectively in place, and I can move that over onto this building here, and we can use that to light this building up as well. There we go. Same thing, we need to remove the light that's in the sky around, so we're going to go back to the same brush that we've got, because we duplicated this, and we're just gonna pop that in there and around this side just to darken that down a little bit. Very good. And then just going to move over to this one. I'm going to duplicate it again, right click and duplicate the mask, not the radial gradient, the mask, because we want all the features that we've added to it to be moved with it. So now I'm just going to make this one a little bit different. Just going to bring that in a little bit like that. We'll aim to light up the windmill more. So that's looking good. So we just need to run again the brush. So we just select that brush. We pick the sky there, and we just go around there and just take out anything that's a bit too bright. I also think this is a little bit too bright down here, so I'm just going to sweep across there a little bit. Okay, let's go back to the main view and see how that looks. So that's looking a little bit better. They're a little illuminated. Looks very nice. Okay, the sky. Let's think about what we can do with this sky. Actually, just before I do the sky, this radial here, I'd like to add a little bit of clarity to it. So I'm just going to go down there and just add in a little bit of clarity, make that pop a little bit. That's good. So the sky, create a mask, select the sky. There we go, nice and easy. So much easier today than it used to be in the old days. I want to add a little bit more to the mask, because you can see there in the tree that it's not completely got that. So I'm just going to add a brush, and with that brush I'm going to take 100% feather, just so I can just brush that in there. So we've got that coming out as the same colors, and the same round here. I'm just going to, got the auto mask on, I'm just going to come in here and just pick up the mask in that area there. So we've got the mask covering the whole sky. So now we can do things to the sky. So what's the best things to do? Well, first thing to do is consider how we're going to deal with the brightness and the darkness. And the best sliders for those are contrast and clarity. So if I bring the contrast up for that sky, there's 100% contrast. That really gives you quite a lot. It's a bit too much, but I'm just going to come back a little bit from there. about there at 55, and then I'm going to go down to clarity, and then we're going to give it a big pop of clarity as well. So really, really sort of makes the sky pop. Have to be careful over here. Look, you can see that where we illuminated those things around the sky there needs a little bit more attention. That mask particularly needs a little bit more attention. So I'm going to click on that, go back to the brush here, and I'm just going to take a smaller brush, and we're just going to take away the rest of that mask over there. So if I hover over it again, you can see still a little bit there in the sky, a little bit over here. So just make sure that that looks better. That's good. And we're going to go back to this one. This one here as well, you can see we need to remove a little bit over this side over here, as you can see. So we go back to the brush, and then we'll just add that back in over here, just so you don't see those differences in the contrast. There we go, a little bit there as well. There we go. Let's just check this one. So you can see that there is just a little bit down that side. So back to brush. I'm just going to come down here and balance that in over the top and down this side. Let's have a look at that again. It's looking better. Excellent stuff. Okay, so the sky's looking pretty good, but I want to make more of the sky. I want to really sort of bring it alive. So the light areas, I'm going to light a little bit more. I'm going to do that by taking another mask, taking a radial gradient, and placing the radial gradient over these sort of brighter areas. Just going to make that a little bit smaller there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this radial gradient, go to the little 3 dots over here, and intersect it with the sky. Okay, so I don't want to put any light or anything onto the buildings, just the sky. And I'm just going to brighten that up. Going to add some contrast, add some exposure, not too much. And what's really important is add the clarity to that sky there. That's looking pretty good. It's a bit too bright, so I'm just going to back off the highlights just slightly. There we go. And then what we can do is we can right click and duplicate the mask here, and then move it to different places in the sky, change its size and shape to really, same again, duplicate the mask. And we can just take that up and just change the way it looks in these different areas. There we go. Right click, duplicate the mask. I'm going to take one over here, just to make sure that's that looks okay. I think a little bit more up here as well. But now we've done a few radials, what we can do is we can, in any one of these radials, we can add a brush. That brush can have 100% feather. Let's lower the flow down to about 40%. So now we've got a light brush, right? So if I make that brush a little bit bigger, we'll also make sure that the auto mask is ticked on. So if I click on a light area like this and I pull around these areas, you'll see that it will tend to focus the light that's being added into the lighter areas because we've got the auto mask on. Same over here. I take a bigger brush here, look, and I just light that up a little bit over there. Top corner here. Just bring that light in, extend the light out from these areas. And then just this area here needs just a little bit more light. So you've got a really quite dramatic sky now that's coming in. We can also add, if we want to, we can add a little bit more contrast to that. There we go. And I'm just going to add in a little bit more clarity. Really make it pop. Now, the important thing when you do really dramatic skies like this is when you brighten areas, it's important to also darken areas. So we can create a new radial here, and we can take areas that need darkening a little bit. So let's take a radial up here, for example, on this piece here, and we're just going to turn it to the same shape, and we're going to drop the exposure down up here, and just again adding in a little bit of contrast, not too much. And now we can add a brush, same thing as we did before, but now of course this is a darkening brush, still got the auto mask on, so we can wash over these darker areas over here, maybe a little bit over here as well, and come in here with some darkness as well on these clouds. we'll also, when we come towards the end, we'll put a post-crop vignette in just to bring the corners down. Now, the water reflection that you're seeing here, we need to amplify this. So the best way to do that is, guess what? Add a radial gradient. And I'm just going to extend it top to bottom this way a little bit more. Put the lightest area where the brightest part of the reflection is. I don't want the sky involved in this, so I'm going to subtract the sky from this particular shot here. And then what we can do is we can bring up the exposure a little bit, add in that contrast that we've been playing with, which really works very well. And I am going to add just a little bit of clarity to this water and make it pop a little bit more as it comes through here. I'm going to add a brush. So we're inside this radial gradient. We've got the brush. That brush is set to 100% feather, quite a low flow. And then I'm going to make the brush a little bit bigger and just draw the light away just a little bit here, just to bring these areas up. So you're just getting that a little bit more there. So the reflection is playing quite a big part. I'm just going to extend this down this way a little bit more and add a little bit in over here. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. I just want to light the house up over here. So I'm going to create another radial. Just going to pop that over the house like so. And then I'm just going to bring that brightness up a little bit, add that little bit of contrast in. Of course, add that little bit of clarity in as well, just to make it pop. I'm going to subtract the sky because we don't want the radial lighting up the sky anymore. And we've got ourselves our foreground, our midground, and our background in this incredible sky. So we're going to go black and white now. Just before I go any further, I want to make sure that the contrast values are completely correct here. And to do that, I'm really going to go and have a look at my highlights, shadows, whites and blacks for this sort of overall image. So I'm just going to come out of the masks. We've still got those shadows open. We've got those highlights lowered down. We're going to go to the whites here. We're going to hold down the Alt key on the keyboard, or Option on a Mac, and then when we slide this, you'll be able to see what's white and is breaking through and what's not. So we want the lamp to be coming through there. So I'm going to go at -5 there. Do the same with black. Hold down the Option Alt key, and as you move back, you'll see the blacks appear. If you move to the right, you'll see the blacks disappear. So I want a little bit of black in the image, just to give us some true black. So black and white. Let's exaggerate the color. Let's do that first. So let's come out of masks. Let's go to vibrance and give it a big pop of vibrance. There we go. Something like 40, +40 on vibrance. The blue's really exaggerated. The green's exaggerated. I might even add just a little bit of saturation to this as well, really to try to bring it alive a little bit more. It's a little bit, you can see now more of a halo here, so we can deal with that as well. So I'm just going to take another brush here and just make sure it's not part of this one here. I'm gonna subtract a brush, and we're just going to see if we can take a bigger brush here and just try and paint that down a little bit, just to take away that sort of halo effect that we're seeing there, just around there as well. That looks a little bit better. Happy with that. I want to darken the area a little bit itself, so I'm just going to go create a new brush, and I'm just going to have the flow around about 40, feather it maximum, and I'm just going to take a brush here and just concentrate on darkening that area down, so we can just move the slider down slightly and just take that away, take the highlights away. There you go. That looks about right? Yep. Good. Okay, so black and white. Let's come out of here. So I'm going to right click on here, and I'm going to jump into Silver Effects Pro, and we're just going to open the programs, just preparing the file for editing, as you can see in the top left here. It's going to open it into Silver Effects Pro, and then what I'm going to do is look at some of the presets that I've made here, and we can just apply those directly, and they give even more or even more dramatic. It does emphasize those halos a little bit more, but let's try the smooth. Yeah, and the fine art one works quite well. I do like that one sometimes. That's quite a nice look. Full contrast and structure, that's too much. So I'm going to go with high structure, harsh. I'm going to bring up the brightness ever so slightly here, top right corner. There we go, not too much. I'm going to add in a toning color of a sort of grey selenium color, which I always quite like, and that's quite nice indeed, actually. And then this area here is just a little bit bright, so there's these little control points you can add. So I'm going to take a control point here, I'm going to make it not too big, but sort of this size, and I'm just going to bring the brightness down slightly on that area there, just a little bit. There we go. Yep, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to click save. It will send it back into Lightroom, and then we can do a comparison between what Silver Effects can do and what we can do in Lightroom only. So that's the Silver Effects Pro, and that's the Lightroom only. So you can see it really brings something extra. Really gives you a sort of almost old style Ilford IP4 look in terms of film, the black and white rendering. So it works very well. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, click like. Always look forward to seeing your comments and questions and any tips that you might have. And if you haven't already subscribed, it would be great for you to join me here on YouTube. And for now, I'm going to say bye-bye.